I am a mystery that I don't want to be solved. I always want to stay controversial. I always want people to say, is it real? Is it not? Who is the real Uri Geller? I think that's going to be on my tombstone. Who is the real Uri Geller?
Broadcasting live from the dark and cold dungeons deep beneath the KLAV studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. Prepare yourselves to be taken away into another dimension as we now have control over your thoughts, fears, and perspective of the unexplained world you dare not speak of. With your hosts, Lindsay Knight and Michael Knight. Ladies and gentlemen, we now open the gates to the paranormal and beyond.
Broadcasting live from the KLAV studios in Las Vegas, Nevada, this is the Paranormal and Beyond. When it comes to the human mind, there are so many powers that are not fully explained or understood. Things like telepathy, psychokinesis, and extrasensory perception all fall into this unknown category that many would consider bizarre or even, just perhaps, supernatural. But the real question is, does the mind hold untapped supernatural powers that defy the laws of physics? In a moment, world-renowned mystifier and international superstar who's famous around the globe for his mind-bending abilities, Uri Geller will be joining us on the program to discuss his unique life that has been shrouded in debate, controversy, and mystery. So prepare to all have your minds bent going into one of the best mystifiers in the world. Uri Geller, when we turn right here on the Talk of Las Vegas, KLAV 1230 AM.
Join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight for the Paranormal and Beyond. Join host Michael Knight and Lindsay Knight as they investigate the unexplained and most controversial mysteries of the world. The Paranormal and Beyond, where the paranormal lives on and conspiracies exposed. The Paranormal and Beyond, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight. Brought to you by Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com. Your ticket to the unknown is at Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, hauntings, mysterious places, and more can be found at Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com. Knights with a K, Paranormal Research Society.com. Based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, Knights Paranormal Research Society is owned and operated by the renowned brother and sister team of Michael and Lindsay Knight. Seeing is believing. And at Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com, you're going to believe.
Do not try and bend the spoon. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no spoon.
There is no spoon?
Then you'll see that it is not the spoon that bends, it is only yourself.
Just because you've seen it in the news doesn't mean it's real.
So you're telling me you got physically attacked by a ghost?
Like I can tell you right now, I believe in the paranormal more than I believe in our government.
There are so many mysteries out there that are still yet to be explained.
You folks have some of your facts wrong, and you just keep talking about generalities.
With all due respect, sir, you have not brought anything to the table to prove us wrong.
This is the Paranormal and Beyond, and it's your show. Call us at 731-1230. Here again, Michael Knight and Lindsay Knight.
Welcome back to another brand new and mind-bending edition of the Paranormal Beyond. But first, be sure to check us out at Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com, where you can link up with all the past shows by simply clicking on that archive link above. That's Knight's Paranormal Research Society.com. Ever want to be an actor? Well, you can by acting right now by logging on to HollywoodBoundActingAcademy.com. Once again, that's HollywoodBoundActingAcademy.com. Special shout out to all those listening online through the KLAV 1230am.com website and all those driving around in the Vegas Valley listening to us on your stereos. I'm your host, Michael Knight. Alongside of me is your hostess, Lindsay Knight. Joined alongside is Jessica Johns of Wartime Paranormal and David Gleason of the EOG Sports Hour. How are you all doing today?
I'm doing good. I didn't get out of the studio in time, and whenever I don't get out of the studio in time, I get stuck in here. And,
well, you know,
I enjoy doing the show. It's fun, but I got to move quicker.
Remember, you can always hear the EOG Sports Hour kicking out those valid sports reports. You know me, conspiracy.
Yeah. It's a sports handicapping show. We don't do the mainstream sports media thing.
10 o'clock to 11 o'clock.
Yes,
before
Monday
the
through
Paranormal.
Friday.
Exactly. Tune in, KLAV 1230 AM. Lindsay, how are you doing?
Great.
Yeah, no, you're not.
Sorry, have a cold.
Sucking
Great.
on those halls, see? Jessica, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I went to the Magical Forest today at Opportunity Village for the first time.
With all them kids. I seen that. Not your kids.
No, not my kids. We'll call
If you
them my
ever need a
nephews.
babysitter, Jessica Johns can do it. Lost
I got swindled. My best friend and her boyfriend and her mom and her kids went to the Magical Forest.
Right.
And at some point, they were like, okay, well, we're going to go back to the car to put all the stuff away and go smoke. You take the kids to go play miniature golf. See you later. I was like, seriously?
All right, we got a great show because it's all about Uri Geller, and we all know Uri Geller because our special guest, Uri Geller, is one of the world's most investigated and celebrated mystifiers this world has ever known. He is famous around the globe for his mind-bending abilities and has led a unique life shrouded in debate, controversy, and mystery. Uri has been studied by scientists who had worked closely with Albert Einstein and also worked alongside the FBI and CIA. He has been a pupil of the late, great Salvador Dali. Uri has lived and continues to live an extraordinary life in front of the cameras, a life shrouded by controversy, and a life dotted with amazing psychic demonstrations. But what people don't know is that away from the bent cutlery and most broken watches, Uri himself had been leading a second life, a covert life as a psychic spy working secretly and without recognition for nearly 30 years. This life has included work for the military and intelligence agencies for 3 continents. The many scientists funded by the CIA at the time that first did rigorous research on Geller for more than 40 years ago concluded that, in fact, Uri possesses a phenomenal gift beyond the comprehension of mankind. As a humanitarian, Uri is the founder of the Uri Geller Charitable Foundation, from which he helps sick and underprivileged children. To this day, Uri continues to inspire and motivate all those around him to open up and use the power of their minds and inner strengths within all aspects of their lives. There is absolutely no doubt that there will ever be another Uri Geller, and that is why the Paranormal and Beyond would like to humbly welcome to the program the one and only Uri Geller. How you doing, Uri?
Hey, Michael, thanks so much. And I'm so flattered to hear such a powerful, positive intro. So thank you again.
It's like that every week.
You are a powerful man. Like I said, I'm one of those people who survived death. And growing up, I watched you, and just your mysticism and the power you had motivated me to wonder what was on the other side. So you mean a lot to me. When the intro is nothing compared to your life, you lived the most greatest life that I wish I had.
Oh, thank you so much, Michael. You know that I'm from Israel. I was born in Tel Aviv. And the first time that I discovered that I had unusual abilities or skills was when I was about 5 or 6 years old. And out of necessity because we were so poor. My father was a great man, but he was a womanizer, so he left home. I stayed alone with my mom. She worked as a waitress and a seamstress, and I knew that I've got to catapult myself out of poverty. So, and I was a show-off. So I used to demonstrate my abilities in school, and I saw that kids were amazed. And that's when I realized that, hey, maybe I could do something constructive with these, call it powers, whatever you want to call it. And that's what made me push myself. I wanted to buy my mom a television set. I wanted her to stop working. And then I discovered an amazing world out there. I became hugely controversial. I don't have to tell you that. You run a paranormal radio show, so you know how many negative debunkers there are out there. But hey, I'm also a master publicist, and I say that shamelessly. And I knew how to take the controversy that was being thrown at me and turn it to basically boost my career. And I, even today, after hearing such a glorious intro about my life, I even can't believe, Michael, that I'm still around, that the longevity of Uri Geller is still there. So to me, it's incredible. I do live a very unusual life.
And I'm a few years older than Michael, and I don't think the younger generation realizes what a fixture you were on television during the 70s. It's even people who have no interest in the paranormal know who you are, and so basically you transcend your genre.
Well, look, because in today's world and day and age of the internet and the Googles and the Facebooks, obviously it's much easier to get known, or if you do say something unusual or weird or strange, it's immediately on social networks and so on. But yeah, again, I'm bewildered at the fact that I managed to instill spoon bending, a rather trivial but iconic demonstration of mind power, into world culture. If you look at movies like The Matrix, when Keanu Reeves walks into the Oracle and children teach him how to bend a spoon,
right.
To people like Johnny Cash and Michael Stipe and Kenny Rogers, who sing about spoon bending. I have a Google alert on my name, and so wherever my name pops up around the world, I get a Google alert, and I just read the first 2 or 3 lines. And yes, I'm just gobsmacked that they still use my name in crossword puzzles and in references in articles and so on. So with staying controversial, because I know very well that there's a major cut of the population who do not believe in the paranormal, but the majority do. And when I'm being asked the question, what about the skeptics? My answer is the skeptics are insignificant, tiny, molecular-sized minority. 7 billion people can't be wrong. And I'm not only talking about the paranormal, but about the belief system that there is a creator out there. So that's my answer.
Uri, you have this amazing ability, more so than, there's a lot of clairvoyants out there who have, they can read people, what have you, but you have everything, like a whole package in one. So that's what makes you so unique. Like psychokinesis, the telekinesis, the whole, remote viewing, and then your whole background. You've had this amazing life. And the fact that not only that you were able to lead this amazing life, but that you've helped people along the way. Was that something that you were, when you were younger, that you even imagined would take place and during your whole life?
No, I never really imagined the successful life I had, and I'm talking now about my career, because everyone has ups and downs. We all know that. I had to struggle. We all struggle at some stage in our lives, but at a very early stage, the CIA discovered me. And they made a deal with the Mossad, with Israeli Secret Intelligence Services, to get me out of Israel and study me in America. And hence this conversation today, because there is a book out by a journalist who writes for the Financial Times and The Guardian. These are very, prestigious
well-known newspapers in the UK.
And his name is Jonathan Margolis, who just came out with a book called The Secret Life of Uri Geller, CIA Master Spy. And on the cover of the book, on the front cover, there is a quote from a CIA, a retired CIA agent, which says, "In my experiments, Uri was superb, astonishing, a superstar." And this comes from Dr. Kit Green, former CIA Assistant National Intelligence Officer. What Margolis did, the writer, is he, how can I tell you this? Throughout the last 40 years, I always used to drop hints that I was doing something else than show business, that the television, like you say, Lindsay, and the radio shows and my performances on stage all around the world, it wasn't, that wasn't all. There was something else. And the author, Margolis, took those hints and decided to research them. And the book is so mind-blowing. I'm actually concerned about the book because of the subject matter and the revelations in it. And I urge anyone who works for the FBI or any police officer or a CIA agent or NSA employee, you know how controversial the NSA is now,
right.
Any Army, Navy, Air Force serviceman, or just anyone who is interested in the paranormal and what governments would do in order to obtain information. So I think that along the way, yes, Lindsay, I did very positive things. I always say no to the dark requests.
Well, it's funny because when you were younger, as in your teenage years, you always wanted to join the Mossad, right? I mean, like, wasn't that like you to be your greatest accomplishment?
Yes, I did, and that was because when I grew up in Cyprus, my parents divorced, and my mother took me to Cyprus, which is an island in the Mediterranean, and different culture, different belief system, different language, different customs, and so on. My stepfather, who died very shortly after he got married to my mother, he ran a bed and breakfast hotel, a little motel. We didn't know, but the motel was a safe house for Israeli Mossad agents. And that's where I was introduced to the spy world by a Mossad agent who at the age of 13, I was only 13, made me a Mossad courier. I would carry letters that he received from Arabic countries, from Egypt, Syria, Jordan, and my task was to take them to the Israeli consulate, and that excited me. And yes, it was a dream come true when I started working for the Mossad in Israel.
I think what is the most mind-blowing is that you actually became a Mexican citizen, correct? I mean, you were actually like the right hand to the president and his wife.
Yes, I was. I was instilled into Mexico City by certain agents. My task there was to get very close to the president, who then, his name was Lopez Portillo, mm-hmm. and his wife, Munci Lopez Portillo. That was my first task. For certain reasons, they told me, get to know the president, befriend them. My other tasks were to spy on the Russian embassy in Mexico City, because it was the biggest spy eavesdropping center in Latin America for the Russians. And I had other tasks like to erase floppy disks. Russian KGB agents would fly out of Mexico City, top secret information on floppy disks at that time. And my task was simply to erase the information on them. Yes, and then the president of Mexico made me a Mexican agent, an agent of the Treasury Department, because that allowed me to get to places. I just flashed my badge and doors opened. So my goodness, did I lead a very secretive and unusual life in Mexico.
How do I get your job?
You got to read minds.
You know what's interesting? Speaking of another 1970s television fixture, there was a movie that came out a few years ago called Confessions of a Dangerous Mind about Chuck Barris, who was the creator of The Dating Game, which was a big TV show here in the States, and The Gong Show. And he claims that he was a CIA operative during the time he was producing both shows. And it's just kind of fascinating how your experience is very similar to his.
Yeah, there is no doubt in my mind. I used to watch Chuck Berry, when I lived in America. I watched all these amazing, successful Gong shows.
Right, the Gong Show was great.
Yeah, but there's no doubt because the CIA and other intelligence agencies around the world do use celebrities that they can trust. Some of them are singers, some of them are actors, some of them are TV personalities. And, even Elvis Presley was very close to the government. And, there are these famous pictures of him receiving...
with Nixon,
Exactly, Nixon and so on. But because nobody would suspect that an entertainer is also a CIA agent or I don't know, a Mossad agent or an MOD agent. And being a celebrity, what that does, it opens doors. People love you. They invite you, high government officials, so you can wriggle yourself very close to the leader of a country.
Yeah, and I think we see that now in the news. Former NBA basketball player Dennis Rodman has become really tight with, I can't remember, the Kim Jong-un.
I'm not going to believe that guy.
Yeah, so we see evidence of that.
No, but here's the thing,
news.
Uri, this was at a time before even the whole metaphysical thing ever hit the fan. But your abilities superseded anything out there. So I know they had a vested interest in you personally. And I read somewhere they wanted you also to knock planes down, not by shooting them down, but just messing with the thoughts of the pilots.
Yeah, that is true. I will not name the agency that asked me to do it because I've worked with few, but some of the requests were quite mind-blowing. At one, I'll never forget this. I can't because it was so shocking that I was led into a laboratory, and in the middle of the White Room stood a pig, and I was asked to stop its heart. There are other little incidences that came out unintentionally, like, for instance, this top-secret Russian plane crashed in Zaire in Africa. And although we have very sophisticated spying technology, there are certain things that you cannot overcome. Like, for instance, you can have the best satellite in the world, but if there is a thick layer of cloud or if there is a thick layer of jungle canopy, you cannot take photographs. Mm-hmm. Now, this plane crashed under the jungle canopy, and the Americans wanted to get there before the Russians did. So they called up on remote viewers, and believe it or not, the plane was found. And this was top secret, and after President Carter's presidency, he was lecturing in a university, and a student got up and asked him, President Carter, did anything strange or bizarre happen while you were president? And President Carter kind of thought for a few seconds and said, oh yeah, a Russian plane crashed under the canopy of a jungle, and psychics found the plane for us. Yeah, so this work is going on all the time. Don't believe the skeptics when they tell you, oh, the government stopped doing this. Some skeptics are so dead wrong in what they believe that is going on in the paranormal world. Every good intelligence agency around the world uses remote viewers. Call them psychics, call them mediums, call them whatever you want to. As long as they bring them information, they will keep using paranormalists.
I mean, it's just amazing with all that. I mean, this doesn't scare you at all. With
the book.
Yeah, the book coming out and all that. It doesn't, I mean, you don't feel like your life is threatened?
That's a very good question. You know, The Secret Life of Uri Geller, the book, CIA Master Spy, came out in England, and it is, I think it's still in the bestsellers list here, I don't know, number 15. But it came out because the BBC approached me about a year ago to do a documentary about my secret work.
Right.
And I went along with them because I thought they will get nowhere finding these people who used to handle me. But they were very clever. They brought in a director who actually an Oscar-winning director, a man called Vikram Jayanti.
Right.
He won an Oscar for a movie he did on Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, great film. Yeah, it was When We Were Kings.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he, with his charisma and personality and an Oscar under his wing, again managed to get to these sources. So the film is extraordinary. By the way, to all of you listening to this program, do visit my website. It's urigeller.com, on which you will find the BBC documentary. I'm plugging a few things here, Michael, if you don't mind.
Oh, that's what plugs make the world go round.
Okay.
Plug away.
There is also a very fascinating documentary about my work on Hulu.com, which is a big American website, which is called Uri Geller, A Life Stranger Than Fiction. Now, when you view these documentaries, there is no way or space, or when you read the book, The Secret Life, that you think, well, can Uri Geller really be a magician? Or did he really manage to trick the world, trick his own family, trick his wife, his children, trick the scientists that tested me? That's impossible. You can say whatever you want to, but once you get this information, which is scientific, which is government stuff, you have to understand or believe that, hey, maybe Uri Geller is not unique. Maybe there are other people who have certain abilities and powers of the mind that are currently being used by certain government agencies.
Oh, and
that's excellent documentary. And just to help you with your plug, I think it's on Netflix as well.
Oh,
yes, it is.
Wish I had known that. I would have watched that before the show.
No, but Uri, I understand that. See, here's the thing. There's a lot of people out there with abilities, somewhat like yours, but they're just scared to go out there and talk about it. You know, in this day and age, it's not something you really go out and talk about. You know, and not only that, a lot of people, see, you were before the time. All right. There's nothing to say you were capitalizing on anything like that. But now you have this day and age where there's so much trickery. Like I said, I've watched you when I was growing up, and to me, you were like my idol because of what I went through. And how can a person have this much ability? Because this is what got me in the paranormal, was basically watching you and giving me the answers.
And here we are talking to each other, but let me just answer this about the dark forces and positive forces. I'm talking about the rational and tangible energies that we all possess. When I was asked to do negative things, dark things, I always said no. When, for instance, Senator Claiborne Pell asked me to bombard the Russians to sign the nuclear arm reduction treaty, I said yes, I will do it. Because it's positive. The less nuclear weapons we have, the better. So they actually flew me. There I was with Al Gore in Geneva with all the dignitaries and the Russian negotiator. I got close to his head and I bombarded his mind to sign the nuclear arms reduction treaty, which they didn't want to sign first. And they signed. Now, of course, I can't claim it that I did it all alone, but these are the tasks that I take upon today. I'm a positive thinker. I'm an optimist. I am a believer. I believe that there are positive energies out there. I'm a person that wakes up in the morning and I try to put myself in an attitude of gratitude. I try to help people. When I get emails, I get 300 emails a day. I answer them all. I'm not a healer. I get a lot of, people emailing me who are sick. My first answer to them, go to a doctor.
That's very profound advice.
Don't enter the
Go to a
mumbo-jumbo
doctor.
land, because you're right. There are a lot of tricksters out there. And I tell people, if you want to believe, it's fantastic. Be a positive believer. But if you're dealing with something like an ailment, like a sickness, the best curing method is the medical arena. And you will all agree with me.
Yes, I would agree with
Yeah.
you. Chuck Barris, in his film and the book, which preceded it, he suggests that he really was kind of hesitant to do a lot of things he was assigned, but that they more or less threatened him. Did you ever get any experience like that, where they wanted you to do things and you resisted, but they were insistent one way or another?
I had a lot of pressure upon me to do things. Remember, I'm an Israeli. I was a paratrooper. I fought in the war. Unfortunately, a tragic event happened. I had to shoot a man face to face, a Jordanian soldier. I was faster than him on the trigger. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking to you today. So that totally changed my psyche, my belief makeup, my spirituality, the mystical things I believe in. There's no doubt that soldier that I shot is in me now. His soul is embedded in my mind, in my body, in my soul. And that changed me a lot. So I was very strong at being resistant to pressures that I got. But otherwise, I really do, and still today, try to create only positive reactions, positive intentions. I try to do things that will yield something good and not bad.
When they were testing you, when you first came to America at the university, and then the CIA, got a hold of all this, and all that stuff that they got from you with all that testing, did they use a lot of that?
Yes, they used, and I'm not now pinning or purposely mentioning the CIA, but let me just mention the overall intelligence community. When Stanford Research Institute scientists tested me and validated my abilities under laboratory controlled conditions, there were certain amazing experiments. And by the way, those are on my website because, there was a Freedom of Information Act and certain things were revealed. And some secret CIA film of those experiments are to see on my website. And for instance, they wanted to see if I could locate a hidden metal in a metal can. The odds were I found it every time. They were, I think, 1 billion to 1. Then they wanted to see if I can locate water. Then they wanted to see if I can levitate. I know this sounds weird and far out and bizarre, but I did manage to levitate a 1 gram weight off an electronic scale. Some of the scientists who were involved were people like Edgar Mitchell, who was the 6th man to walk on the moon, Hal Puthoff, Russell Targ. These are physicists, and there were other people involved there. When these results were written up in Nature magazine, which is one of the most prestigious scientific magazines in the world, the intelligence services knew how to decipher those and translate those into tangible tasks that I received and were on my target list. So the answer is yes. They were kind of mirrorized on the field for me to go out and collect.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask you a secondary question, and whether you divulge this or not is basically up to you. But from my curiosity, and probably for everybody in the studio, Montauk Project was going on pretty much at the same time, and before that, MK Ultra. were you a part of the Montauk Project at all in any sense?
Well, all I can say is, let me just say this again to all our listeners. Please forgive me for sounding like I'm boasting about my powers and I'm showing off and all that. But I can't describe what I've done in another way. So forgive me about just kind of trying to glorify my work. I'm really not. These are facts and they did happen. Now, to answer your question, I have to be very careful because there are certain things that most of the things I still cannot talk about. But one of the experiments that is described in The Secret Life of Uri Geller in the book is when I was taken to the Lawrence Livermore radiation labs in near San Francisco. By the way, that's where they build nuclear weapons. Now, you can imagine when I did something there, what the ramifications are. But even a weirder event happened to the scientists there. You won't believe it when you read the book, what happened to those scientists. So in an indirect manner, I know what you're talking about, but I cannot comment on it. I cannot deny it, but I cannot confirm it either.
Well, you would be the go-to guy when it comes to, we're talking about in that day and age when the psyche was being investigated by the government. And, there's no doubt that you would be the poster child for these experiments. And I know there's a lot of stuff you can't talk about, but it's just fascinating. Your life is just fascinating. I sit here, and even though you tell the audience, you're not boasting, you're not. Because if they research Uri Geller, they're like, what? Oh, my God. You lived a life that everybody wished they can live, even if it's bad or good.
Yeah, as baseball great Dizzy Dean said, it ain't bragging if you've done it.
Exactly.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I had my moments also. Let me tell you a little about the skepticism and the controversy. You see, when I came to America, I was immediately attacked in Israel. Don't think that the controversy started in the U.S. It started in Israel. I was attacked immediately by magicians, by some scientists who said it was all magic and I was just a trickster. But I'll never forget the biggest lesson in my life was when Johnny Carson invited me to be on his show. What I didn't know is that I was walking into a trap. What exactly happens there is this. First of all, I thought, wow, I'm going to be on Johnny Carson. This is it. I made it in America. Because, Johnny Carson was an icon. He was a legend.
Huge.
Anyone getting on his show, was supposed to be made in the USA. So I walked into a trap because Johnny Carson confirmed with the magician James Randi. And they set up the scene. Anyhow, I felt very, very negative vibes, and I sat there for 22 minutes humiliated by Johnny Carson. The spoon that I bent wasn't bent enough for him. He was sneering, and anyhow, the only thought that kind of ran through my mind while I was sitting there being humiliated is, Uri Geller, you are finished. You go back to your hotel, pack up, and fly back to Israel. So after the show, I was devastated. I was drained. I got to my hotel, and this was in L.A., Los Angeles, and I fell on the bed, and I planned to, the next morning to pack up and go back to Tel Aviv. So the phone rings in the morning. I pick it up, and the operator says to me, Mr. Geller, I've got a Merv Griffin on the line for you.
Oh, wow.
So I said to the operator, are you telling me that is this the Merv Griffin? And she said, well, that's what he says. So I got on the line, and it was Merv Griffin, and he says to me, Uri Geller, I saw you last night on Johnny Carson. I want you on my show this week. And that's when it dawned on me that there was no such thing as bad publicity.
No.
As long as they spell your name correctly, as long as they write about you. So, the skeptics basically, because most skeptics didn't understand publicity.
Right.
They were not PR people. I was. And as long as they talked about me, and as long as they wrote about me, it didn't matter what they wrote, as long as they mentioned Uri Geller. And that's when all the phones started ringing, from the Merv Griffins to the Mike Douglases to the Tom Snyders. We're talking about the 70s. And there's one line that Oscar Wilde said 100 years ago, and that's my answer to the skeptics. Oscar Wilde said, "There is only one worse thing in life than being talked about, and that's not being talked about."
Great line.
That's
Brilliant,
right, yeah.
brilliant line.
So true.
Let the haters
What
talk.
Yeah, exactly.
The Carson show's famous. I mean, I've read all the Carson biographies and everything. I've always had a fascination with him. But what got you to that point? I mean, obviously you had to be fairly well known to get on the Carson show to begin with. What got you to the level right below that Carson and his ilk were aware of you?
I'll tell you exactly what got me on that show. While I was being secretly studied at Stanford Research Institute, somehow there was a paper at that time called the National Examiner.
Yeah.
It was kind of like the National Enquirer, which is still around.
But didn't have the same high journalistic standards of the National Enquirer, if I recall correctly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they came out with a headline, Uri Geller bends a fork to scientists studying him. I do not know how they got that headline, but that started the ball rolling. This was in 1972. And then I started getting phone calls from the BBC in England. And do you know what's really weird is talk about the controversy and Johnny Carson. But if you come to think of it, I'm kind of actually proud to point out that this is just one of the multiple postings on YouTube. It's a video of me on Johnny Carson. And in that I think it's from 1973.
Right, I believe
now,
that's correct.
listen to me carefully. This video of me and Johnny Carson has been viewed by 3.2 million people in 6 years. Now, that's like filling up the Yankee Stadium 64 times. Or if each of those people that have watched the 14-minute video, this means that they have collectively invested 31,000 days or 85 years in watching a derogatory video about me. Now, for my part, I say, that is unbelievable.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Do you agree with me?
Oh,
so
certainly.
That's the way, that's the way I look at the controversy. Hey, you don't believe. If you want to debunk the paranormal, go ahead, but be careful, because if anyone hits me or my family or libels me or says something really nasty, I pick up my phone to my lawyer.
Yeah, as well you should. And it's interesting. I think the culture's changed, because I think at the time there were so few outlets for the media that the dichotomy was, is he legit or is he not? But now I think it's a case where, no matter whether people buy into paranormal powers or your skills, they think you're an interesting guy. And I think that's fascinating. And so, it's I think the pop culture is a little more nuanced now, and people can appreciate you, for just being an interesting character, for lack of a better
People
term.
are just going to get curious.
Yeah.
Do you remember that a few weeks ago when the government shut down, there was a poster of that little kid from The Matrix.
Right.
You remember when he tries to bend the spoon with Keanu Reeves. So a poster came out, and they showed a picture of the little kid with a big bent spoon, and Keanu Reeves' face is reflected in the bent spoon.
Yeah, I remember that.
And it said, this is what the poster said. It's really funny. Do not try and bend the government. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth. There is no government. only corporations and banks.
Oh, I
Very
love
Oh my
that.
God, that
Nice.
I'm gonna, you know what? I have to use that every time we go on.
I'm going to tattoo
my
that on my
goodness.
Yeah,
back.
that's great. Yeah.
I've put that on my website.
It's like the
But
heart
if
of
you
all
just
ours.
put in, if you just put in Uri Geller, do not try to bend the government.
That's a great
that
one.
poster will come out.
Uri, I got to tell you something. When you were talking about James Randi, okay, I have a run-in with this guy as well. Okay, this guy does nothing but make a living off debunking people. I have so many guests on here, like Anthony Carr, and all these, and he just goes out there and breaks his back, and makes YouTube videos just to downplay people on abilities that he don't understand, especially me being near death, and everybody here in the paranormal, and David in sports over there.
Of the local pop culture expert.
Well,
I guess.
I'll tell you a little story about me and James Randi. This was a few years ago when David Blaine was doing one of his feats in New York. I've known David for many years, and I went to visit David Blaine. I think he buried himself, and it was outside the Trump Tower somewhere.
Right.
And there was James Randi wearing a long cloak, and I thought to myself, wow, this would be a good time for me to approach him and shake his hand and say, look, James, let's put everything behind us. Let's kind of become friends. I really wanted that. So I walk up to him. My brother-in-law was filming everything there, so I actually have it on film. And I stretched out my right hand, and I said, Randy, hi, this is Uri. And he looks up. And I said, let's shake hands. Let's put everything behind us. And he didn't take my hand. So I said, James, look, I have a stretched hand out to you. Let's shake hands. And he kind of turns up and looks at me. And I say to him, James, why aren't you shaking my hands? And he turns to me and he says, because I hate your guts.
No way.
That is terrible.
No, but see, Uri, that I can relate because all the guests that I do have with mystical powers and all what have you, every time I talk to these guys who haven't booked up for the month, your name always comes up because they get chastised by James Randi, and they're always talking about, Uri Geller got the same thing. And it's weird because I'm going to have you on the show, but I didn't know whether if I should bring it up. But I do hate this guy for what he represents because what I went through, he'll probably try to debunk me. And, that whole David Blaine thing.
But at the same time,
he should have been the guy getting buried.
But at the same time, didn't we just say, haters are the biggest promoters because no matter what they say, people are going to get curious. So if he says something negative, then people are going to go, well, let's see. And then they're going to go back and look. And
it makes more publicity.
People are going to
he falls into the same category as people I find interesting cats. And he's got a gimmick too.
And say thank you.
But I don't respect a guy who can't put his gimmick aside and shake a guy's hand. I mean that seems a little petty.
I've never had any problem with people who are atheists or agnostics or skeptics because I've got some very, very close friends who are total skeptics and don't believe in what I do, but they're still friends. But it's not even worth continue talking about skeptics because I told you before. To me, there are molecular nothings, insignificant nothings. Not all of them, because there are some nice people in the skeptic land who are genuinely nice and they don't believe. Hey, that's your right not to believe. If you want to be a Buddhist or a Mormon or a Muslim or a Jew or a Christian or an Orthodox or whatever religion you choose to believe in, that is your right. If the skeptics choose to not to believe in the paranormal, that's their right. But there is a way not believing, and there is a way in not believing. So let's just close the door on the skeptics because it's not worth it. We have just a few more minutes. I just wanted to mention you, the three of you. I'm sorry. I know that I'm speaking to Michael and Lindsay, but what is your name? The third person that is talking to me.
We got Jessica.
Jessica Johns is here to my left, and I'm ironically enough David Gleason. I do the EOG Sports Hour. I'm a I'm a sports betting expert.
Okay, great. Tell me, how many more minutes do we have on the phone on this show?
Ryan, how much? 4.
I think about
4.
how many? 4 more minutes?
4 more minutes.
Okay. What we're going to do is I'm going to sign off with an amazing or an interesting or a light-hearted experiment with your listeners. And then you can always come back next time and reveal the success rate. But anyone now listening to us at home, I'll give you about a minute and a half to quickly go and get your broken watches, broken house appliances that are battery operated, and a spoon. So let me repeat this. I know the request is bizarre. Anyone listening to us now, if you're at home, get your broken watches. It could be a broken clock or a broken pocket watch that hasn't worked for 50 years. And bring to the radio also a spoon. You've got a minute and a half to do that. To people driving a car, when we do the experiment, do not remove your eyes off the road.
That's wise.
But if you have a broken component in the car, in a moment, I'll tell you exactly what to do. So, Michael, what we're going to do here is, let's give that minute and a half for people to get their broken clocks and a spoon.
Sounds good.
What we're going to do here is a massive experiment that kind of made me well known around the world. It's interactive. And what I will do now is I will basically act as a trigger, as a catalyst to the people, to the minds, to the belief system of people at home. So here we go. We've got about 2 minutes. I want everybody at home to wind up your broken watches, place them in your hands, and I want you together with me 3 times, and all of you in the studio, when I say 1, 2, 3, I want you to shout out the word work. Believe that your watches will start ticking. Put the spoon on the radio. It might fly off. It might move. It might bend. People in the car, if you have a broken component in the car, focus on it. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, work. One more time. 1, 2, 3, work. And the last time. 1, 2, 3, work. Now open your hands. If you have a second hand, is it moving? If you don't have a second hand, lift the watch or the clock to your ears and listen. Is it ticking? If your watches are ticking, if anything weird or bizarre happened, if your spoon jumped off, if your a broken component started in your car, let us know. If nothing happened to you, do not be disappointed. It doesn't happen to everyone. It doesn't happen to all the time. Michael, how do people reach you?
They reach me at the Paranormal Beyond at yahoo.com. Once again, that's the Paranormal Beyond at yahoo.com.
So if anything happened, make sure that Michael knows it. And and if you ever want to get in touch with me, my email address is on my website. Do get The Secret Life of Uri Geller. It's a fascinating read. And I love you all. And anytime, Michael, anytime you want me back on your show, I'm more than happy to do
Absolutely.
it. You all sound like great individuals, and I love you all.
Well, I can assure you we are all believers, and be sure to check out Uri Geller's website at www.uri-geller.com. Once again, a true gentleman, Uri Geller.
We love you too, Uri.
Thank you.
Nice
I
meeting
love
you.
All right, stay on the line. I'll talk to you after this. But remember, join us back here. What is this? Wednesday,
yes.
We're going to have Patty Greer from the UK talk about crop circles. #1 film documentary award-winning filmmaker when it comes to this. All right, everybody, stay safe out there. Enjoy your Tuesday, and see you back right here on Wednesday. Good night, everybody. Actingacademy.com. Special shout out to all those listening online through the KLAV 1230am.com website, and all those driving around in the Vegas Valley listening to us on your stereos. I'm your host, Michael Knight. Alongside of me is your hostess, Lindsay Knight. Joined alongside is Jessica Johns of Wartime Paranormal and David Gleason of the EOG Sports Hour. How are you all doing today?
I'm doing good. I didn't get out of the studio in time, and whenever I don't get out of the studio in time, I get stuck in here. And,
well,
I enjoy doing the show. It's fun, but I got to move quicker.
Remember, you can always hear the EOG Sports Hour kicking out those valid sports reports. You know me, conspiracy.
It's a sports handicapping show. We don't do the mainstream sports media thing.
10 o'clock to 11 o'clock.
Yes,
before
Monday
the
through
Paranormal.
Friday.
Exactly. Tune in, KLAV 1230 a.m. Lindsay, how are you doing?
Great.
Yeah, no, you're not.
Sorry, have a cold.
Sucking
Great.
on those halls, see? Jessica, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I went to the magical forest today at Opportunity Village for the first time.
With all them kids. I seen that. Not your kids.
No, not my kids. We'll call
If you
them my
ever need a
nephews.
babysitter, Jessica Johns can do it. Lost it.
I got swindled. I
1-800.
went. My best friend and her boyfriend and her mom and her kids went to the magical forest.
Right.
And at some point, they were like, "Okay, well, we're going to go back to the car to put all this."
Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight. Brought to you by Knights Paranormal Research Society.com. Your ticket to the unknown is at Knights Paranormal Research Society.com. UFOs, ghosts, aliens, hauntings, mysterious places and more can be found at Knights Paranormal Research Society.com. Knights with a K, Paranormal Research Society.com. Based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, Knights Paranormal Research Society is owned and operated by the renowned brother and sister team of Michael and Lindsay Knight. Seeing is believing. And at Knights Paranormal Research Society.com, you're going to believe.
Do not try and bend the spoon. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no spoon.
There is no spoon?
Then you'll see that it is not the spoon that bends, it is only yourself.
Just because you've seen it in the news doesn't mean it's real.
So you're telling me you got physically attacked by a ghost?
Like I can tell you right now, I believe in the paranormal more than I believe in our government.
There are so many mysteries out there that are still yet to be explained.
You folks have some of your facts wrong, and you just keep talking about generalities.
With all due respect, sir, you have not brought anything to the table to prove us wrong.
This is the Paranormal and Beyond, and it's your show. Call us at 731-1230. Here again, Michael Knight and Lindsay Knight.
Welcome back to another brand new and mind-bending edition of the Paranormal and Beyond. But first, be sure to check us out at Knights Paranormal Research Society.com, where you can link up with all the past shows by simply clicking on that archive link above. That's Knights Paranormal Research Society.com. Ever want to be an actor? Well, you can by acting right now by logging on to HollywoodBoundActingAcademy.com. Once again, that's Hollywood Studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. This is the Paranormal and Beyond. When it comes to the human mind, there are so many powers that are not fully explained or understood. Things like telepathy, psychokinesis, and extrasensory perception all fall into this unknown category that many would consider bizarre or even, just perhaps, supernatural. But the real question is, does the mind hold untapped supernatural powers that defy the laws of physics? In a moment, world-renowned mystifier and international superstar who's famous around the globe for his mind-bending abilities, Uri Geller will be joining us on the program to discuss his unique life that has been shrouded in debate, controversy, and mystery. So prepare to all have your minds bent going into one of the best mystifiers in the world. Uri Geller when we turn right here on the Talk of Las Vegas, KLAV 1230 AM.
Join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 11 p.m. to midnight for the Paranormal and Beyond. Join host Michael Knight and Lindsay Knight as they investigate the unexplained and most controversial mysteries of the world. The Paranormal and Beyond, where the paranormal lives on and conspiracies exposed. The Paranormal and Beyond, Monday, Wednesday, and
I am a mystery that I don't want to be solved. I always want to stay controversial. I always want people to say, is it real? Is it not? Who is the real Uri Geller? I think that's going to be on my tombstone. Who is the real Uri Geller?
Broadcasting live from the dark and cold dungeons deep beneath the KLAV studios in Las Vegas, Nevada. Prepare yourselves to be taken away into another dimension as we now have control over your thoughts, fears, and perspective of the unexplained world you dare not speak of. With your hosts, Lindsay Knight and Michael Knight. Ladies and gentlemen, we now open the gates to the paranormal and beyond.
Broadcasting live from the KLA